Welcome to the ArmaniTalks YouTube channel, #1 YouTube channel to help you level up your 5 soft skills: public speaking, storytelling, social dynamics, emotional intelligence, creativity. 5 soft skills to help you change your life forever, skyrocket your confidence along the way. Today, I have an online health coach, bodybuilder, writer, and my friend. We've spoken a few times, and he's a brilliant man in the same mission that I am with personal development. I have Mr. Matt Stevens on the show. What's up, Matt?
What's going on, Armani? Appreciate you having me on, man.
For sure, for sure. The thing is, we've actually talked a few times beforehand, and we've developed a friendship beforehand. So today's episode is going to be a very good one. And it's an episode that I prepped my audience with in my email yesterday. I asked what a bodybuilder and a public speaker have in common. And 2 things that we have in common is #1, a vision, and #2, and that's what we're going to be talking about today, is discipline. So with that being said, for today's episode, let's enter the world of emotional intelligence and talk about discipline. So Matt, how important would you say discipline is for your entire grind?
Man, it is. It's essential. You absolutely have to have discipline for everything, and I think that every single aspect of your life, I think everything beneficial in your life comes from having some sort of discipline. Whether you like it or not, you have discipline. It may not be the level that you would believe it is, but you can't live without discipline. Whether it's because you're being influenced to do things by your emotions, like we were talking about earlier, or you're forcing yourself to do things despite emotions, which is really when people believe discipline counts. So it's pertinent, definitely.
Yeah, and I like how you brought up the emotions, because a few years ago, if you told me that discipline was an emotional, intelligent act, I would have looked at you very confused, like, wait, what? But if you think about it, most of discipline comes down to using your mind to overpower disruptive emotions. And that pretty much is emotional intelligence, making your mind and body work in harmony. And the thing with discipline that I've noticed is it's very hard to follow, but you can make it easier with a routine. How would you say you typically discover your routine?
Gosh, do you mean as in like my daily routine, or what exactly do you mean?
Yeah, let's go with daily routine. Do you have this like morning routine that you have as soon as you wake up in the morning, and or even in the end of the night?
Oh, absolutely. In fact, it's something that I've been trying to improve myself on. Because every day, I don't care who you are, you're always going to be trying to get better. And one thing that I've been trying to concentrate on is when I get up in the morning, when I go have my coffee, is I want to think of something I can be grateful for. Because I have so much, and I've literally just been big on gratitude lately, man. And it's I have so much to be thankful for. And then when you feel thankful and you have everything that you need, and you realize how blessed you are, then you feel like you can give more to people. You know what I mean? You feel so abundant. You could give that abundance to others, and it's like, man, I want to start my day off like that.
Yeah, I feel like with gratitude, it's really cool that you brought it up, is because with gratitude, it helps you start your day off the right way. And if you end it with gratitude as well, you end your day off in the right way, which allows you to start your day off the right way the next day. So it's like this little chain effect.
Absolutely. I mean, the thing is, you woke up, man. That's a blessing in itself. You got an opportunity to make things happen that day.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it's just being consistent with the things that you've done the day before, or you have new things that you have to do, and you got an opportunity to really capitalize on things and make things better.
Yeah, and another thing, just to add on to the gratitude, is that it makes all your wins feel like wins. Because beforehand, when someone isn't grateful as a person, they only see big wins or nothing. For example, say there's a kid going through school right now. Say he passes his exams semester by semester. He may not see those as wins, but what he is going to see as wins is when he finally gets that degree. So exactly. he keeps going for that next big thing. completely forgetting the little small wins along the way. I'm sure for you, in terms of bodybuilding, there's a lot of small wins that make that big win.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it's the compound effect is, what it is. And you can't belittle the small. I mean, like, the thing is, they're big. The small wins are just as big as the big wins, because you can't necessarily have the big wins without the small wins.
Mm-hmm.
Like, for instance, and it's tough. It's something that you do have to consciously do, because when you're celebrating a bigger win, it's kind of a subconscious thing. You think in your mind, like, okay, that's what I'm going for,
Yep.
But you also have to realize that on the path to getting to what you're going for, you are also going for this, these small things. So you have to put a conscious effort into actually celebrating those smaller ones as you build, and you're getting closer to your end goal. And that's something that, I'm constantly having to be better with too. But, to go back to your question with bodybuilding, absolutely. Every rep counts. Every calorie counts. Everything. Whatever we do, it's all a compound effect. You don't look at your results on a daily basis. It's tough to. You do need to. But we look at the end game. We're looking at like 12 weeks from now. But 12 weeks from now starts today,
Absolutely. Same with public speaking, because every now and then when I have new Toastmasters mentees, they're at this point like completely filled with speech anxiety. They're really nervous to get on stage. And a lot of them in the beginning stage, they're wondering, well, when am I going to be in a Toastmasters competition? I'm like, don't even worry about the competition yet. First, give your icebreaker speech, which is speech number 1. So once they give the icebreaker speech, they know that the whole speech anxiety is blown way out of proportion, and now they can give a speech. Then they're thinking, okay, well, now when do I give the Toastmaster speech? But eventually I'm like, okay, just focus one by one, and eventually you'll get there. Mm-hmm. And that's what typically happens. Those small speeches along the way eventually allow you to perform on the grand stage of the speech competition. So that's actually a unique thing that you brought up, because when I was planning on talking about discipline today, surprisingly, I didn't actually expect us to be talking about gratitude. In many ways, gratitude is sort of like a fuel for discipline.
Well, I think it's one way to, steer your emotions in the right direction, because we take so many things for granted. It's something that like I mentioned before, you have to consciously think about it. And, emotions are subconscious, and the subconscious is the body. So when we let the body in, it's, obviously it's on autopilot. So you have to take the wheel, and you have to determine, hey, how do I want to feel right now? What do I need to feel like? What do I want to feel like? And typically gratitude gives you that emotion that you want to feel like. So to me, if it's going to give you those specific benefits as far as getting yourself into abundance mentality, getting out of, of course, the scarcity mentality, then it's so important.
That's true. And how do you typically do gratitude? Do you write it down, or do you say it out loud? How do you do it?
It's something that I think to myself. It's like, okay, well, and a few people that I've listened to and that I've followed, I guess certain role models for me, one of them being like Ed Milet. One thing he does in the morning is, and he takes his a little bit more extensively than I do. He puts his phone aside for 30 minutes. When he starts the day, he says it's his time. And he makes a good point where he says that, if you wake up and the first thing you do is look at your phone, you are at the mercy of whatever you see on your phone right there emotionally. You're emotionally at the mercy of it. So if you see something bad, man, you're going to start your day off bad. I mean, like, have some control, You have the ability to put your phone down and start the day that you want to start it with. You start it with the mentality that you want to start with, and you've got to take that into consideration if you want to take advantage of that day, being the opportunity that's in front of you. So for me, it's extremely important to wake up and get into the emotional, into the best, emotion that I can be productive off of. And so for me, gratitude, just putting it aside, going ahead and drink my coffee. A lot of times I'm very thankful for coffee.
We have something else in common.
Oh, absolutely. And it's just you're sitting there and just feeling good, like, man, I'm lucky or I'm blessed, you know.
Yep.
So
Yeah, and it's funny because when I was first starting gratitude, I would read it off a paper, which I thought was good. But later on, I found for me personally, it's more helpful when you're thinking of it on the spot that particular day, whether it's saying it out loud or writing it. It helps you think of different wins that you didn't think of the day before. But whichever way, I mean, there's so many different ways to do it. My biggest
yeah,
thing is like just get it done. But
yeah,
yeah, I mean that's a very unique way to look at it. Gratitude is the engine for discipline.
mhm.
Now, another thing, in terms of routine, how important would you say experimentation is with routine? Personally, for me, I'll start this one off. For me, experimentation is key because it's very important to understand that everyone has their own particular routine. If you just copy that next person, you may you may be inspired in the beginning stages, but it's not customized to you and your life and even your mission. So you may slowly fizzle out. So I think experimentation is huge.
Absolutely. It's an art. I think
Yeah.
routine. When we sit there and we think about the routine and scheduling and timing and punctuality and tasks and time management, or we're talking about science. But
Mm,
talking about experimenting, then you're going into the art. It helps keep things new, and also keeps that inspiration going, because a lot of times, man, I'll go into the gym and there are times where I hate having a plan. I'll go in there and like, look, man, I'm ready to bust my ass, but I don't want to have a plan to do it. I just want to go. And those are some of my greatest workouts. And as long as I record it, or at least track it, with the amount of weight that I'm doing and the volume that I have, and I'm hitting my volume amount that I'm going for, and I'm fine. I like to go with the flow. I like to try new things and experiment. And of course, for my expertise, I
mm,
need experimenting different things, because if I'm with a client who they're feeling like their routine's getting stale, then I'm like, okay, well, we're hitting hamstrings today. Let's try this out instead. So
yep.
it's also gaining that knowledge. So I definitely think experimentation should definitely be thrown in there. There should be structure, no doubt, but there's got to be time to gain new knowledge.
Yep. And when you are experimenting, you're still having that structure, but you're basically plugging in new pieces that could enhance your material even better. I remember when I was first starting public speaking, I was I was just giving speeches, but eventually I realized that I wanted to get some mentees in order to really make my routine better. And once I entered that new experimentation puzzle in, it just took my public speaking to the next level. So I believe experimentation allows you to constantly level up. And one thing that I do think that will help you level up, you slightly mentioned is that you track your results. Tracking is huge. That's something that I've been doing more and more lately. How does that help you stay on track?
I mean, for me, for just, I guess, in to pull in as many aspects as possible.
Mm,
I believe that when you track things, you can manage them. If you don't
yep.
know what you're looking at, if you don't have it, then how can you manage? How do you know that you hit your goal that day? How do I know that I was better than I was yesterday if I didn't know even what I did yesterday or even what I did today?
Mm-hmm.
From that aspect, but also your subconscious most of the time needs proof. They say seeing is believing. Believing is also seeing. But if
Yes.
you want to see something tangible, then you got to track. You got to see what you've done, because, like I said, if I didn't do it, do as well as I did yesterday, then I just cut myself short, and I don't want to be ignorant to that.
Yep.
I have the power to be able to hold myself accountable. Tracking, it does that.
It makes so much of a difference because with Toastmasters, there's certain clubs that record your speeches, and there's other clubs that don't record your speeches. And I've experimented with a lot of clubs throughout my public speaking journey, and I've always noticed that the people with the recording in their clubs tend to improve so much more because they're seeing themselves from a third party perspective, saying like, so that those kind of stuff, or doing really awkward body language. But once they record themselves, now their subconscious mind is able to see what they like, what they don't like, and adjust for that next speech.
Exactly.
Yep. So tracking helps you stay accountable for discipline.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Well, that's cool. I mean, but the thing is, let's be real. We started this episode off talking about how emotions are tough. So there's days where we don't want to be disciplined, you know? How do you deal with those days?
Man, as much as I go to the gym and as passionate as I am about health and fitness and whatnot, there are still days where I don't want to go. There are still days where I'm just like, man, today's not the day. It's not my best day. But it never fails, Armani. Every time I go to the gym on those days and I make myself go and I start moving and I get going, Tony Robbins says motion creates emotion. He's absolutely right, because every time I get in there and I get moving, man, I feel more like moving. I'm like, man, especially at the end, I'm like, I'm so glad I made myself go. And it's the same thing I noticed when I go to church. I'm not the most religious person, but man, I love to go there it is a personal development action. People are there trying to get better, and there are times where I put it on the back burner because like I said, I'm not very religious, but there's days where I feel like I don't want to go, but I make myself go, and I'll be like, man, I needed to hear that. I'm so glad that I made myself go. So it's really trusting that the emotion that you want is going to be there. Say, man, I may not feel like it now, but I know that if I do make myself do this, I will have the feeling when I get there. And that's the toughest, that's the roadblock that you gotta get by. That's the obstacle that you have to, it's the mental obstacle that you have to lift. I want to say, well, one of the, examples that I try to give people here recently is that when we're trying to lift, when we're trying to get stronger physically, we pull against gravity. The more weight we pull, the stronger we get. So it's gravity that is pulling us physically. Well, the same applies to mental with comfort. Comfort is that gravity that is pulling. And every time you do something uncomfortable, you're lifting mentally against that comfort. So you are growing yourself mentally in that way. So
yeah, that's a good analogy.
I like to compare comfort with gravity because they completely align with each other.
Yeah, because your emotions love comfort. Your subconscious mind loves comfort. So every single time you can use your conscious mind to overcome the comfort, you just done a mental rep.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's a great analogy. Hopefully it'll help people see the importance of discipline in a different light.
And some things are heavier than others. That's why I tell people start small. Start small and work your way up. Be like, okay, well, I can handle that. What's next? The thing is, something that's real simple to do that will help your mentality, not necessarily from a physical standpoint. And I tweeted about this the other day. It was yesterday. I don't necessarily fast for the health benefits. I fast for the mental benefits because I realize that, okay, things have been too easy lately. I need to get myself better. I need to challenge myself a little more. Today, I'm going to fast for 24 hours. And I hold myself to it. And so I tell people that's a great one to start with. Start with fasting. Start with 16 hours, then try to beat that 16 hours. Go to 17 hours the next time and just work your way up. You realize, like I have, getting to 48 hours isn't hard, especially after you just did 46 or you did 44 or something. 4 hours, you go, man, that's nothing. I could wait till then,
That's nothing. And now imagine if they started to do that 48 hours from the get-go. They may shock themselves and they may just run away.
And then they have a easier chance of failing that and then being discouraged from trying it again.
Yeah, they're going to be like, oh, well, that was never for me in the first place. It's like a very skinny kid going to the gym for the first time and trying to bench press 350 pounds. As soon as it lands on his chest, he's just going to say, oh, well, working out's not for me.
Exactly.
Versus lifting the bar, then work adding 10 pounds on each side, then 20 pounds, then 30 pounds, and so forth. Same concept with public speaking.
Yeah.
You can try speaking to a stadium full of people for your first try, and say you choke in front of them. You're just going to say, well, public speaking was never for me. Versus that other person that speaks in front of the mirror, speaks in front of 3 friends, speaks in front of a group of 10 people, 15, 20, 45, and slowly you're building your public speaking muscle. And then speaking in front of the stadium is light work.
Absolutely.
Yep. And discipline helps you get there. It helps you create a vision for yourself that allows you to just keep moving forward versus moving all around the spot.
It's being the yourself, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
And if I may interject here, it's, you know, because you're talking about speaking in front of an entire stadium and whatnot. That's a huge goal. And how the hell are you going to get a bunch of people in a stadium to, you know, listen to you anyway? You know what I mean? But everybody talks about the big goals. They're like, oh, I want to drive a Lamborghini, or, oh, I want to be rich one day. I want to make $1 million and stuff. Well, you got to make $1 before you make $1 million, you know?
Exactly.
And so, like, it's being realistic with yourself and saying, okay, well, I see what's in the future. I see my goal, the ultimate goal that I want to get to, but it's getting there. It's taking that first step. So what is that first step? And that's the discipline that you have to, because you get excited. It gets you excited, you know?
Yeah.
But it also gets you overwhelmed as well. So you have to be able to shrink things. That first step. What is the first step? And I have to remind myself a lot of times too, because, man, this is something that just happens to everybody. I also don't think people realize this. When you have, you know, people that are way ahead of you, they're still dealing with a lot of stuff. They're not perfect. They're still figuring it out too. Everybody is still trying to figure it out because they are in a new position. Every day you're in a new position. And you have, I guess, similar things that you can relate to and that you've had experiences of, but you have this, you know, new position that you're in, new emotions, new people that are coming in, new meetings, everything. And so it's getting used to and getting yourself in that right mentality, but also just realizing, man, what do I got to do next? That's it, you know?
Yep. And then that's why there's 2 parts of discipline. There's the results, and then there's the process. So in many cases, we focus on the results, but the results should be the North Star, while the process is what's helping us get there. And you said this analogy a few seconds back where you said, before you make the $1 million, you have to make the $1. Mm-hmm. It's really ironic, but in many cases, the $1 is harder to make than the $1 million. That's what a lot of millionaires say, because initially there's a big mental block of making that $1. They don't know if they can make it. But once they make that $1, now their mindset is fixed. And they say, well, why can't I make $2 and $3 and so on? Discipline allows you to build that chain effect.
And I'm glad I had someone that told me that perspective when I first started. And, you know, I concentrated, okay, just get that first client. Just get that one person to pay me and get going and deliver exceptional service and whatnot. Well, when I made that first $1, to me, it meant a lot more, because it was like, man, it's possible. That at that moment, it tells you that it's possible. So that first step, that next step needs to have that importance to you. And a lot of times we shrink it, we belittle it. But I had someone, you know, tell me, like, don't. Just focus on getting that first client, getting that first $1. And then things will grow from there. And they have. And I'm real glad that he pointed out, because, like I said, I was so excited when I got that first $1. It was like things were never the same after that. And it's like, okay, now what do I got to do next, you know?
Yes.
So it's like that anticipation comes, and it's just, it builds momentum. That the only thing that can build momentum is the next step.
Yes. And the thing is, with that first step as a whole, that's when you're feeling the most motivated. So that's when you want to see the most, the results then. How do you recommend that people fight through that motivation? Because you're motivated, but you're not going to get the results for a few months or a few weeks, whatever the case is. And as you're not seeing the results, your motivation is dwindling down. How do you recommend people stay mentally tough too? go past that threshold until they do see the results.
That's the gratification when we have, just that next step. I think it's just implementing that perspective of, hey, what's next, and that's it. Yes, keep the end goal in sight. That's what's going to motivate you, but also why are you doing it too? Your why is a huge reason. I wrote an article on this a long time ago, or a few months back, 11 tactics on building discipline and cultivating discipline. And one of them mentions, what means something to you? What holds value to you? Why are you doing things? And you got to remember why you're doing it in the first place. And you got to remind yourself at those times when you do feel discouraged of why you're doing it. You need that. You have to be your own best teammate and say, okay, when I get to that point, because it's going to happen, it's inevitable. You need to prepare yourself for when you do run into that roadblock, because it's going to happen. There's going to be discouragement along the way. There are going to be roadblocks along the way. And if you don't prepare yourself to get past them when you get there, you're going to fail. So
you're going to get rattled.
And I tell my clients too, look, if you don't plan and prepare ahead of time, you're going to fail. And I have to be straight up with them because I'm their coach. So it's the same aspect with starting anything. You know that you're going to run into that discouragement. You know you're going to run into those troubling times and those hard times. Prepare yourself for when those happen. Yes. And know why you're doing it in the first place, so that the emotion that you have attached to that why is going to help you get past that obstacle and get through that roadblock. So I think that's a huge part of it.
That is. Just to now tie what you just said with the public speaking analogy, just to show more how we have something in common. I've never been a big fan of just positive thinking before a speech. I believe more so realistic thinking. Absolutely. Because if you go into an audience and you just think, oh, well, everyone's going to love me, everyone's going to applaud, everyone's going to do this, and say while you're giving the speech, someone just pulls out their phone and starts checking their text message, you're going to be like, well, I wasn't expecting this. Yeah, well, what happened? But imagine if you do the realistic thinking where you see in your mind someone pulls out a phone, someone heckling you, someone booing you, and you're still continuing with poise. Now, when that happens in a real life scenario, you're not as rattled. You're like, okay, well, I knew that something like this could happen. So back to what you were saying, if you expect for bumps along the way, you're not going to quit when you actually get those bumps.
And the thing is, I'm glad you brought that up, because a thing that's been a big topic on my newsletter recently is focus. So when we're thinking of expectations and being realistic, we can mix, and what you mentioned about the positive thinking, we can mix that positive thinking with our expectations and think, have them be unrealistic. But it really comes down to positive focus. So realistic thinking coupled with positive focus. What do you want?
Yes.
And what do you have control of? So when you think about what you want, you're going to go for what you want. You start thinking about what you don't want, you're going to attract it. That happens with everything. What you give your attention and your focus to, you empower. It grows. So if you consistently think of what you don't want, you're going to get it. That fear is going to grow in your mind. You're not going to be thinking about the actions that you need to be doing to get what you do want, because you're focusing on what you don't. And you're going to do exactly what it takes to get what you don't want, maybe by avoiding whatever problem that is in your way. So the best thing to do, focus on what you want. So you can think, okay, how am I going to get there? I think about this all the time. Okay, that's what I want. I'll catch myself. It takes a conscious effort. We're all human here. We're going to get pulled in by those emotions. Yeah. You have to take a conscious effort and say, wait a second. This is not what I want. What do I want? And then start thinking about what you want. So you could think about, okay, how am I going to get there? Then you got to put a plan together. Because like you mentioned, the expectations, when they're unrealistic, when they have, completely focusing on, what they can't control, you're you're giving the keys to your emotion to someone else, and you're letting them drive.
Yes. It's a pretty cool, how you said your newsletter focuses on the focus of what you don't want, what you do want. Because I just want to tell you a quick little story. 4 years ago, when I was first starting public speaking, my Toastmasters mentor, he said he was going to take me to an IHOP and I was going to give a speech there. And I was like, in an IHOP, these people are eating. Why the heck would I give them a speech? And he's like, well, you're going to give them a speech because you got to get comfortable being uncomfortable. I was like, nah, man, they're gonna yell at me. They're going to boo me. They're going to do all this.
Well, did he tell you what he wanted you to speak on, or?
No, so he said he was going to give me the topic as soon as we got there. So there's a thing called table topics in Toastmasters where it's called impromptu speeches, where you pull a topic out of a hat and you talk about it for 2 minutes. So he said I was going to be doing the table topics for 5 minutes to a random audience. I was like, you're crazy, old man. What's wrong with you? So he took me in his car and he drove me to IHOP. And during the car ride, the whole time I was saying, listen, they're going to boo me. They're going to look at me like I'm crazy. They're going to get angry at me for disturbing them, all this stuff. And he was listening to everything I said. Then he looked at me and he was like, okay, so you're focusing on every bad thing is going to happen. You're not focusing on your reaction to the bad things that are going to happen, the stuff that you can control. And when he told me that, my mindset started to shift. And that's when I was thinking, okay, what if they do boo me? I'm still going to continue. What if they do get angry? I'm still going to continue. So I turned that negative thought into somehow a positive thought because I was focusing on my actions. And by the time I went into IHOP, he told me to give a little speech on my favorite song. So I started giving a speech, and everyone started looking at me like I was crazy. They're like, who is this guy? Even the waitresses were looking at me like I was crazy.
So you did it in front of the whole IHOP?
In front of the whole IHOP.
Oh, man.
Yeah, so the funny thing was a lot of people just looked at me and then went back to eating. And a lot of people were actually listening, like, what is his favorite song? And it was the funniest thing because in my mind, I was thinking that everyone was going to get like really angry, boo me and all that stuff. But it wasn't half as bad. And the people that did ignore me, I mean, it didn't harm me in any ways. I still continued. But the story shows that there's two things you can focus on, the stuff you can't control or the stuff that you can control.
Yeah. You know, I love that story. It kind of makes me think here, like, it's somewhat obnoxious, but if you're using, and the thing is, I would never think to use, obnoxiousness as a means of growth. But to be honest with you, I could see how it could be a useful tool in that situation where you're like, okay, this is a challenge, and I know that if I do this, because it is challenging, because it's hard, I just got to be obnoxious, and speak in front of these people because, it's interrupting and everything, but I mean, you're doing it, to kind of grow yourself, and that's really interesting. I really like that.
Yeah, and the thing is, I'm sure you'll learn this from dealing with a lot of clients, but no matter what you do, there's always going to be people that love you. There's going to be people that are indifferent towards you, that can like you, or they can be the third group that hate you. Mm-hmm. So the indifferent group, they can be swayed towards loving you or hating you. The haters, I mean, they're going to hate. The people that love you are going to love you. And that story, that IHOP story, showed me that a lot of people are going to love you, even if they're strangers, and you just got to focus your attention on them. And especially you as well. Like, we're both building personal brands, and I'm not going to say every single comment's nice. I'm sure you can't say that either. What are we going to focus on? The people that aren't nice, or the people that are following us that show us support?
Absolutely. And the thing is, what you did in that IHOP was polarizing. So you separated those people into two different groups: those who didn't like you or were indifferent to you, and then those who were like you, or who did like you. And if you don't do anything polarizing, you're not going to have either one of those groups. They're just all going to be indifferent towards you. It's taking that indifference and splitting it up. You have to want the hate just as much as you want the love, because it's just inevitable. You're dealing with different types of people. There's going to be people that look at you, because everyone's different. Everyone has their own insecurities. When we look at each other, we see a reflection of ourselves. It's much like the analogy of an eyeball can't see itself until it looks in the mirror. Well, we can't see ourselves until we look at others. They are the mirrors of us. So we look at someone and we see what we don't have. We see what we do have. We see our incapabilities. We see our capabilities. And we measure ourselves against them. And in some ways it could be unhealthy for people, but it's something that we naturally do as humans. And you have to be able to learn how to do that in a beneficial standpoint. And it takes an understanding of what's acceptable for you and accepting yourself, being comfortable with yourself. Because if you don't learn about yourself, if you don't know yourself and you don't become comfortable with all your strengths and weaknesses, which is what I've also told my newsletter, know your damn strengths and weaknesses.
Yes.
And accept them, because they're going to cause problems in your life. They're going to pop up. And if they do pop up and you've already accepted them, man, you don't have a problem. But if you haven't and you've let them linger in the background, they're going to cause you some issues, especially in your relationships.
That's why once you acknowledge your strengths and weaknesses, now your brain can figure out what to do about it. But if you just keep burying it and saying, oh, well, that's not one of my weaknesses, you can't prove it, then you're never going to do anything about it. And it's always going to linger in the back of your mind.
Right. And the thing is, when you're polarizing people, they're going to be looking at you and seeing the same thing. They're going to have and there's going to be people that you're going to run into who haven't confronted their insecurities. They haven't confronted their weaknesses. So when they see you and you are a reflection of their insecurities, they're not going to like you. And you just have to expect that. That's just something that's going to happen. Not everybody is going to be at the same level of development as you or anybody that may actually like you.
Right. You're never going to see someone that's ahead of someone or doing better than someone in life and be a hater. The people that are haters are seeing the people that they're hating on doing what their mentality said that they couldn't do. Now back to that group that we were talking about, like the people that love, people that are indifferent, and people that hate. I would say that if you're someone that everyone is indifferent towards, then back to that analogy you were saying earlier about how comfort is being weighed down on you, chances are you're living in the comfort zone. Because if people are indifferent towards you, chances are that you're not taking any form of risks.
Absolutely. You're not making a difference.
You're not making a difference, because when you are making a difference, you're just going to polarize by accident.
Yeah.
Yeah. And exactly. I'm sure we've been learning that during our personal branding journey.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Now, Matt, another thing that I love about discipline, this is something that isn't really pushed by mainstream too often, is accountability.
Mm-hmm.
Basically what we've been talking about, whether it's gratitude, tracking your results, having a routine, it all comes back to accountability. If you weren't disciplined, it's really hard to point fingers at someone else. Do you think that discipline should be utilized by more people that are finger pointers?
Absolutely. You can't be a leader unless you're disciplined. You have to be able to lead yourself first, and discipline is like a pillar of leadership. So the thing is, if you're telling someone to do something that you're not doing, they're not going to take you seriously. They're just, and so, like, how the hell, if someone told me to do something and they're not doing it, man, I'm going to be like, what are you talking about? I'm not going to take you seriously. I'm not going to respect that. It's when you tell someone to do something or expect them to do something that you're already doing that they can actually say, okay, he's done that or he does that. I see him doing that. I can respect that. It's not something that he's not willing to do, and that makes you a better leader, because it also kind of makes you a little bit more relatable too. People are like, it's a sense of comfort that you give. And that's a part of leadership too, is being able to give comfort to people. They have comfort in you. They're relying on you, and they have trust in you. And it takes discipline in order to build that discipline with yourself. There was one other thing that I was going to mention you said here. I'll come back to it. Well, I'll think of it here in a second.
Yeah, what you were just saying, no one's going to, for example, take you as seriously if you're giving workout tips and you're eating pizza, you have a pot belly, that kind of stuff. You need a little bit of credibility to show that you've done it. And discipline in itself is just you giving yourself a command. It seems like you got your thought.
Yeah, that's it. So there's two parties here. There's one party that says shut up about your goals and go get them. And there's one party that says post about your goals so that people can hold you accountable. And it's something that I've been meaning to kind of look into as well, because like there are people that will say, oh yeah, I'm going to do this, or I'm going to do that. And then they never do it. But I think that there's a certain threshold where when you say you're going to do something, you need to announce it publicly. If you announce it publicly, then I'm going to encourage it, because then people are going to be like, oh man, hey, you said you were going to do that and you didn't do it. And it is a human tendency to remain consistent. I was reading this book, I think it's Robert Cialdini, called Influence. And we have more of a tendency to remain consistent than we do to be right. So even if we're wrong, and it's been proven that we're wrong, we still back up what we have been believing because we want to remain consistent with how others have seen us. So when you make an announcement publicly to other people that you are about to do something or you're going for this, then you are going to have you're going to have a greater, I guess, emotional accountability on yourself to do what you said you were going to do, to align with that and be consistent with it. So if you're serious about something, or you want to push yourself off, into the deep end so you learn how to swim, do that.
That's a really unique take, because that topic in itself is very polarizing in our personal sphere. I've seen a lot of people say, keep it silent and just work on it in silence. Or the other group that says, announce it. So it's forced accountability. Other people are just going to ask you, hey, you said you were going to do it. Why didn't you do it?
Exactly.
It seems like you were part of group 2.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. It's a threshold. So if you are constantly, like, if I just came to you, Armani, and I'm like, oh yeah, I'm going to do this, and then, you just say, it's just my words, and you just say, oh, okay, cool, but I continue to tell people that I'm going to do this thing, but I tell them individually, but only you know that I told you, only so-and-so knows that I told them, and nobody collectively knows, so they don't bring it up with each other. So I don't really feel that pressure to be consistent with it, that I'm really just bullshitting everybody,
Yes. And say you just quit. You don't have anyone to just call you out and be like, hey, you never did it. You just basically slide off into silence by quitting, like no one calls you out.
Exactly. So if I say that I did a challenge, and I believe that there are challenges out there where you have to post on social media weekly. And there's also that aspect of like, what if I fail? But man, if you fail, just own up to it. I mean, shit, like that, at least you tried. So if you're posting like for me, if I was to make a social media post, maybe on Instagram, about my body, and it's like a picture of my body saying, oh, I'm going on my diet today, man, I better start that diet because I just announced it to everybody.
Yeah, like 11,000 people, yep.
Yeah, and so the next week I update again and say, yeah, first full week, 7 days on my diet, to hold myself accountable, to let people know that I'm still doing it. And then, weekly I start to see results, and I, maybe get to a, whatever maybe target that I've set for myself. Even if I don't hit that target, I've probably come much further than I would have if I'd have just kept it myself and maybe gave up 3 days into it, And you got to think about that aspect. It's really, I think that it comes to that threshold. I think that if you tell that those two groups that you mentioned, I think that if you tell the group of, keep it to yourself, that if they were to tell other people so that they could be a little bit more serious with it and be consistent about it, that they would accept it and they would say, oh, okay, that sounds a little bit more reasonable. Because I think the problem that they have with it is the fact that, when I mentioned to you, I'm just telling you, I'm just telling so-and-so, and I'm just telling individual people, and I'm bullshitting everybody, you know? Because people don't like to hear that. They know that you're lying. You know, they know that you're not going to keep your word. And that's another thing, is discipline, keep your word.
Yes.
It's extremely important because, and I've explained this to everyone on my newsletter, and I've tweeted about it as well. When you tell yourself things, that you're going to do things, that is called an intention. When you don't keep an intention to yourself, you're basically breaking a promise to yourself. You intended it. You thought, oh, I'm going to do that. But if you don't follow through on that, you're not aligning with what you had intended for yourself to do. So it's basically you're making a promise with yourself. Every emotion was aligned into doing it, and you let yourself down. And we shrug it off, you know? But that matters.
Yes.
That matters. It makes an impact on you and how you see yourself. When you say you're going to do something, when you intend on doing something, do it. Because your well-being, your self-esteem counts. It's counting on you to do it. And the amount of respect that you have for yourself. And then you can start doing it for others because you do it for yourself. You can have intentions for others, or you can tell people that you're going to do certain things and not follow through on them. It's because you do it to yourself.
Right, and it makes it a bit easier to become a leader as well, because now you're coaching other people with working out. I'm sure a lot of your clients at certain spurts, they want to quit as well. But you've dealt with that in the past and you've overcame it. So now you know how to give really precise tips on how they can overcome it as well.
Absolutely.
Yep. So, I mean, I'm going to try that the next time I take one of my mentees to IHOP.
Man, I was going to say, if somebody put me in that position, that'd be a tough one.
Yeah, but I do agree with that. I mean, I'll be honest, Matt. I've always been one of the guys that keeps it low when I'm doing something. But as of late, I have been announcing it more to certain groups. I wouldn't say individuals, but groups. Last week, I did an episode with Shadid on social dynamics and the importance of masterminds. And with your mastermind groups, these are a lot of like-minded individuals. And if you announce it to them, that these are the people that really get it, you know, that they understand where you're coming from. They know what the hustle is about. So they aren't just going to call you out for not doing it for malicious intent. They genuinely want to see you succeed. So for whoever's watching this, if you fall into group one and you're not telling anyone, at least form a mastermind and tell them and work your way up. If you get haters along the way, that's fine. Use them as fuel to really get the job done. Don't see it as, what if I fail? It just, I haven't succeeded yet. And just switching that mentality in itself allows you to have abundance. It allows you to not get nervous. You'll have self-doubts, but you'll still fight through it. I like how you use the example with the body. You're basically posting the pictures day by day, and you're seeing the results, and you're inspiring a lot of people along the way as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, just for personal people that do personal branding, I mean, for my Twitter, and I'm sure yours as well, a lot of it is us just giving advice to ourselves.
Oh, no doubt.
Yeah,
it's things that I've thought about, but it's definitely, I don't want to say it's 100% things that I'm going through, but that definitely helps. It definitely is an inspiration and definitely an influence as to what I am tweeting. But there are certain times, probably most of the time, where I see something and I'm like, I just have that random thought where I'm like, oh, you know, that's good. You know, I'm going to tweet that. Or you know, I'm thinking about something and I want to tweet that. But yes, a lot of times it's what I'm going through, because I know that other people are probably going through it as well, and someone will be able to relate.
Yes, and that's why with social media, it's easier than ever to hold yourself accountable and build a tribe and sell your skill set along the way. It's a 3-in-1. That's why I find it really weird when people use social media just for nonsense, because guess what? You could use YouTube to chronicle your journey. You can use Twitter to document your journey. You can use Instagram to have pictures of your journey. However you do it, whatever medium you use, you can accidentally form a personal brand.
Yeah.
Yeah. But Matt, this has been a really interesting discussion. You ready to answer some questions?
I'm sorry.
You ready to answer some questions?
Let's do it.
Yeah, so I have a few questions from my email readers, and let's go through a few of them. Okay, so the first one, what elements do you think makes a good routine? I'll get started with this one. What I think makes a good routine are three particular elements. It's the why, how, and the what. Most people, they jump right into the what, and the what is the routine in itself. But if you jump right into the what, you have a lot of random productive acts that you're doing. And after a while, you're just gonna be like, and this feels like work, and you're just gonna quit. So I recommend starting off with the why. The why is what engages your emotions. For example, if I want to be disciplined, why? It's because I want to become a better version of myself. I want to become a bodybuilder. I want to become a public speaker. Just have a rough idea of a why, because that's going to change as you gain more experience. The how is a rough idea of how you're going to get there. Like, who do you have to talk to? What kind of routines do you have to experiment with? What kind of books do you have to read? That kind of stuff. And then once you have the first two, then you begin the what, which is your routine. But those are the three elements that I recommend. What about you?
I would say, how is this helping? When you ask yourself, how is it helping you? You do have your why, I think, in the back of your mind. And, there are certain aspects of things that you want to do, or maybe that you've gotten caught into a routine that necessarily doesn't help you. You have to catch yourself, just subconsciously. You have to consciously ask yourself, how is this helping? I guess, somewhat compare it to, kind of where you've been, because, you have an engineering background. I have an engineering background.
Yes.
I was always about optimizing processes. I was a process engineer. So it was like, okay, how can I improve that? How can I make this better? What if I did this first and then I did this? But when you experiment that way and you try to optimize whatever process, just find out which one that you're used to, because there's an aspect of, okay, I can get here this fast with this and bust my ass, but there's also an aspect of, okay, I need to enjoy myself as well. And you've got to find that balance for you and then gradually push it into whichever direction that you want it to be in.
Yes, I do agree. You have to enjoy it to a certain degree, otherwise it's just going to feel like work.
Absolutely.
Yes. Next question. Hello, Armani. What do I do when I have friends that prevent me from being disciplined? You want to take that one first?
Yeah, drop them. I mean, the thing is, it's sometimes it's tough. Sometimes you've got the emotional attachment to people, but the thing is, you got to be thinking about yourself, and you got to think about where you are. Are you happy with where you are? Because if you're not, the people that you're surrounding yourself with definitely have something to do with that. And if they're holding you back from being in a place and being at a specific mentality or emotional state than what you would rather be, you've got to drop them. You've got to be ruthless when it comes to your goals. And if that's enjoying your life, which it is for most people, drop people. Stop. You're not taking yourself seriously if you're not. So it's much better to be by yourself than it is to be in bad company, because you are good. You love yourself. You're in good company. And eventually, if you become better, you're going to attract people that are better. You just got to put yourself in the situations to be better and to be around people that are better. Go to places where people are trying to get better.
Yes, and based off of what Matt said, I wouldn't say they're preventing you from not being disciplined. I would say you're allowing it to, for that to happen, because you are completely in charge of your own social circle. So in this scenario, you want to take accountability and say, listen, this circle is my fault. Now I have to do something about it by cutting them off or distancing myself from them. And now you'll feel the accountability to find new friends or attract new friends. But whatever the case is, your circle definitely does matter if you do want to be disciplined. Okay. Would you recommend having an accountability partner in the initial stages when you want to quit? I don't see any problem with that. I mean, in the initial stages, I tell people you can make discipline fun. With public speaking, for example, in a certain stage, I had my cousin who did not want to go back in his hometown. And I just told him to go with one of my other friends that lived in the same city. And they would go every single week together, and it felt like a game. So if you want to do that, you can, but make sure you're just not reliant on this person. Make sure you guys are just pushing each other to become better, but don't be reliant. What's your take on that?
It's about having an accountability partner, right?
Yes.
Okay. From my perspective, my standpoint, in bodybuilding, I think there's a small, minute percentage of people who can coach. But if you look at every single professional, everyone that steps on the Olympia stage is coached by somebody. As much as they know, as much knowledge as they have of what they're doing and how they do their diet and how they work out and how they do their conditioning and whatnot, they still have someone else to work with. And I do the same thing. Even though I'm a coach, I have a coach. So we talk with each other every week. Okay, his name is Mike. All right, Mike. What do you think we should do this week? Or I'll send him progress pictures and just say, okay, look, I kind of messed up the other day. I'd like to keep calories the same this week because I think I could make a little bit more progress on that. And then he'll give me his input and say, you know what, I like that idea, or explain why he disagrees and whatnot. And we feed off of each other. And so I strongly agree with that. But like you mentioned, don't become reliant upon them. Don't use them as a crutch. Anything you use as a crutch is making you weaker.
Yep. Because say this person moves away, what are you going to do? Are you going to go back to your old self, or are you going to still be disciplined?
Exactly.
Hello, Armani. How can I be disciplined even on the days that I don't feel like it? So you covered this. Slightly, Matt, and you did mention that the days you don't feel like it, you force yourself to be extra disciplined.
Absolutely. I mean, the thing is, there have been times where I'll go to the gym, or I won't feel like going to the gym. There are days, and that's when the discipline counts. That is what discipline is. It's doing what you need to do despite your emotion, despite the urges that your body is throwing upon you, saying, "Oh no, let's lay down for a second." When you got to get shit done, you need to be able to hold yourself accountable. That's what discipline is doing it despite your emotion. And there are days where, as much as I love fitness and as much as I love the gym and I love, just everything about it, there's still days. I'm human. You're human.
Mm-hmm.
There's still days where I don't feel like going. And it's on those days, and it never fails, when I make myself go to the gym. Not once have I ever regretted it. I've always gone to the gym, and when I start moving, as shitty as I feel, I start moving and I start feeling better. And at the end of that workout, it turns out to be a solid workout, and I walk out of there with my head held high because I went against those emotions when they were so strong, and I came out on top and made an awesome accomplishment. And you know what that does to your confidence? Think about that. Think about what you could do for yourself when you get past it. I don't feel like it now, but we want the carrot. Like, there's a carrot there. Realize it. A lot of times we just don't realize that it's there, but that's what discipline is. That's what it gives you. It gives you that freedom. It gives you that ability to have that trust and that esteem in yourself.
Yeah, and I'm sure you feel more confident on the days where you force yourself to work out when you didn't work out versus when you force yourself to work out when you did want to work out.
Exactly.
Yep. Okay, so let's make this the last question. And this question is, how long did it take for you to discover your perfect routine? Personally, for me, I haven't really discovered my perfect routine yet, because there are certain things that I do daily, but there are certain things that are moving parts. I'll try it out. I don't like it, then I'll try something else. So there's a set routine and there's a variable routine. The variable routine is something that I always experiment with for optimal growth. So for me, I haven't found the perfect routine yet. It's just getting perfected.
Yeah. I don't think people ever reach perfection. I tweeted this today, actually. Yeah, it was.
Retweeted right afterwards.
Yeah, and it said, it's okay. We have such a soft society now today that we're lowering the standards, and it's unacceptable. And I heard someone the other day saying it's okay. Everyone loses every now and then. No, it's not okay. You should never be okay with losing. You should want to win every damn time. The thing is, that's what separates good from great. That's what separates, a Tom Brady from just your average NFL quarterback, is the fact that he wins so damn much. He wins more Super Bowls than any of them, and he's great. He wants to be perfect. He wants to win every time, and he's so good because he wants to do that. It's that you'll also never reach perfection. You're human. You will never reach perfection, but that doesn't mean that you shouldn't strive for it. Because it is perfect, we should strive to do it. And that's what makes sure, that's what I guess dictates whether we are our best or not.
Yes.
And you want to be your best. And so with my routine, it's the same thing. I more often will look back at the end of the day and be like, man, especially if it's a very productive day, and I'm like, man, I killed it today. What did I do? Like, what was different about today that I did that I haven't done on other days? And that's when I try to take things from what I did and try to implement them to the future days. So one of the things for me is like, okay, getting up and like I mentioned before, setting my phone aside and getting that gratitude. That's something that I didn't just automatically do. That's something that I just figured out, experimented with, like you mentioned, and realized that it made that big of a difference. So that's my take on it.
Yep, a routine is a lot like a skill set. For example, you don't think LeBron James, he knows how to play basketball, but do you think he ever comes in and he's like, okay, well, I figured out basketball, I'm never going to play again? No, he always finds a way to sharpen his skill more and more and more. Just like with any skill, you personally don't say, well, I have a great body, I'm not going to work out anymore. You don't say, well, I'm a good public speaker, I'm not going to speak anymore. Surprisingly, a skill and a routine have very similar analogies, where a routine, as good as it is, it can keep getting better and better, which will help you with your discipline along the way. Well, Matt, today's discussion was very unique. Anyone that's trying to get into discipline right now, I'm sure a lot of the stuff that we discussed can steer them into the right direction. I appreciate you for coming on.
Oh, absolutely, man. I really appreciate you inviting me. I've had a great time. This is a great talk, man.
Yeah, no, we got to do more in the future. So, Matt, where can they find you?
You can find me. I'm most active on Twitter and Instagram. A lot of more of my fitness stuff is on Instagram, although I am incorporating a lot of my personal development stuff. But very active on Twitter. It's at Matt_S_Stevens with a PH on both Twitter and Instagram. And then I have my newsletter on my website, which is realmattstevens.com, if you want to check that out as well.
Excellent. I'll be sure to put those links in the description below. And with that being said, if you enjoy more content on emotional intelligence and soft skills in general, be sure to subscribe for my free daily newsletter, or drop a newsletter every day regarding these soft skills. Thanks again for joining Matt. Sorry about that. And I'll catch you on that next episode.